And confirmation of the agenda. Reeve Campbell, Councillor Vodden. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. Moving to the consent agenda. Is there any points that council would like brought out for special consideration? Okay.
On the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Syke, Councillor Hallahan seconding. All in favor? Carried. Okay. John's here. Okay, we have John Marshall here from the Huron County Economic Development Board and the Growing Success Project. The floor is yours, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Reeve, Vincent, and councillors and staff. My name is John Marshall, and I am the Vice Chair of the Huron County Economic Development Board. I want to introduce Cody Judry, who's the Economic Development Officer for Huron County. What I want to talk about tonight, and I'll be brief, is the Growing Success process, which is a service delivery review of economic development services in Huron County. We think that this is a very important process. It's the foundational due diligence process for how we do service delivery for the purposes of economic development in Huron County. And to begin, I want to talk a bit about our board. The board was developed in 2015 to advise the county on matters related to the strengthening of regional economy. It's a unique board in that it's comprised of 8 leaders from the private sector, people that come from the entrepreneurial world, leaders in manufacturing, leaders in senior management in corporations. We have Dr. Maureen Newman, who's a professor of ethics at the University of Waterloo. She's on our board and a resident of Goderich. So it's a unique board that it's largely private sector based. There's also 3 members of council on our board. We're always guided by the strategic plan of Huron County, and we've been focused on a number of foundational issues, which I'll discuss as we go. The board's responsibility includes identifying opportunities to improve the delivery of development services at county and municipal levels. That's always been one of the elements. We're not going to be stepping out of our role to discuss this. It always has been one of the board's roles when the board was incepted. Rather than just read a slide, we know it's competitive. And when I talk to other municipalities and other economic development boards, they're out there looking for the same businesses as we are. They're looking for the same manufacturing people as we're looking for. They're looking for the same retail people as we're looking for. They're looking to do more value add with agriculture like we would like to do. It's very competitive. And this process is critically important because they're not doing this. And we think that, I guess when I was in business, like when I was buying and selling companies, the due diligence was the thing. It was knowing what they're doing, knowing who's best of breed, knowing who's doing the smart thing. And that's what this process is all about, is that due diligence process. And we want to ensure that our service levels are delivering outstanding results and they're meeting client expectations. The problem with not doing a review like this is that without a review like this, we are flying blind. We don't know what we need to do in that race to attract new investment. We don't know if we're winning or losing or if we're even in the game. When we talk to other entrepreneurial people that are looking to build plants or expand a facility, it's not that they think poorly of Huron County. It's just that they don't really think of Huron County. And that's what we want to do, is make sure that we have all the right story, that we have the right services, and that we have the right foundation to talk to people that can come and expand our economic growth. And again, this review is the government's due diligence to ensure value for tax funding. So Beginning this December, we'll have a professional consultant collect information from county and municipal staff for analysis. The board's looking for a series of independent recommendations on how to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our development services. And this is really important, is that third point. There is no predetermined outcome in mind. You know, I had the experience of kind of crossing center ice with my head down a couple of times, and that's what we did when we came up with this, because we didn't consider the sensitivity around people thinking that this is a single tier activity. I'm not shy in saying that. That's not what this was all about. This is a process that is, we look at everything through a commercial lens, through an economic development lens. We're not looking at, you know, there'll be conversation about structure and governance and all those kinds of things. We don't know where that will lead, but there'll be a discussion of it. There always has to be in any due diligence process, how the thing is structured and operated. That wasn't the game plan. And when we presented this 3 different times to county council, and with the help of some councilors got it passed, the biggest complaint or concern they had was that we were lining up lining up for single tier. And we didn't really understand the sensitivity or what the concern was, because that was, again, it was a commercial exercise. So that's why that element's up on the slide. There is no predetermined outcome in mind. This is not somebody's game. Like I said, when I was building companies, nobody ever cost avoided their way to success that I know about, and that's not what we're trying to do. In fact, this review may validate that Huron County is a best-in-class development service provider in Ontario, but we need to look to know. That's what we need to do. We need to look to know. And when I talk to other municipalities really close by, they aren't doing this. And that's what I think it's really, really important. It gives us a leg up. We'll just know ourselves better. We'll know them better. We'll know what best in class is and what best of breed is. This is very important, and it deals with the cooperation and active participation of the partner municipalities. It's absolutely vital. Without that, we may as well not even bother doing it. Because development services cross municipal boundaries, the board can't undertake this alone. We can't undertake it alone. It's pointless to not have your input. It's pointless to not have all the municipalities' input. That's what will stymie it, is if we don't have that. And that's why we're here having these conversations with you tonight. One of the things I might mention, one of the things we thought would happen was that we wouldn't get kind of an invitation to a lot of municipalities, but we are. We're getting municipalities an invitation to virtually all of them. We had a couple of responses that said, we get it, we understand, no presentation needed. Only one that said, no, it's okay. But most others have invited us and said, you know, come on down and tell us what it is you're doing. And so it's been good in that regard, that there is an interest in finding out what we're up to, and to be able to offer their observations on the RFP. And we already have, in some of the discussions that we've had, made changes to the RFP. With municipal involvement, that demonstrates our shared commitment to ensuring that the needs of our development clients are being met. We have to have that shared commitment to the study, and to make sure that we're all in the same, that we're all singing off one song sheet. The results of the study, we feel, will benefit the county and all municipalities. We'll just know ourselves better. So the next steps, the board will engage all municipal councils, as we are tonight, and looking forward to discussing the Growing Success Project as a delegation to councils and or to staff. We've done one prior to this, and that was to a group of clerks and treasurers the other day, and it was a very informative meeting. The RFP will be posted on October 13th with a deadline for submission by November 3rd. The contract will be awarded November 15th, and at the latest, the final report will be available to us and you on March 31st. And as I said, I would be brief, and thank you. We look forward to working with you on Growing Success. If there's any questions, I'll entertain them now, and Cody and I will answer any questions they might have. Hopefully we can answer them.
Councilor Singh?
How would one determine what is best in class? When you talk about best in class, what is that benchmark and where is it coming from?
It's coming from us and the consultant And we're laying out for the consultant what it is we need to know. And a lot of using ourselves as a benchmark, using Huron County as a benchmark, and our structure and process and processes as a benchmark. That is our benchmark. And what is better or worse? Who does better or worse than we do? In looking at, I'm not sure that's a good answer, but that is what we are the benchmark. We are the benchmark to determine, and in looking at other municipalities, pardon me, and how they do it, that it's from that we'll determine best in class, or what we should do, what we can do to excel or better ourselves over the competition. I say over the competition, that's a capitalist dog comment, but yeah, over the competition, over the municipalities. Does that answer your question, Mr. Syke? I'm not sure I did.
Well, it does, and I guess I'm trying to understand what the report is going to tell you. If you've already got a bench, like if you're benchmarking yourself,
yeah.
What is the report going to tell you? Because is the report looking at every community, like from 100-mile radius, or
No.
what exactly are you trying to accomplish from the report if you are actually already setting the benchmark?
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do. No, I absolutely do. And it's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer it really well. It is the structure of the RFP identifies the things that are in scope and out of scope, things that we want to look at and we will not, and specifically will not look at, as identified by the groups that we've talked to that have suggested that the elements of improvement, shall we say. And I guess it is, again, I can only say that the intent is to be upward and downward from where we stand today, in terms of cost, in terms of service delivery, in terms of speed of response to the marketplace, in terms of how we can express to the potential consumer, like a manufacturer that wants to come into the county, how fast we can respond to the needs that he would have to build a plant. Can I give you an example?
Sure.
A company called TriMaster is a company from KW. They have 3 plants. They're looking to build a 4th. This company that I know from my entrepreneurial experience, and I'd like the 4th to be in Huron County. And so I know them, so I talk to them. And I didn't have a lot of the answers that they needed in terms of, kind of developable land and location and geography within the county and all those kinds of things. So I got a hearing because they knew me, but I couldn't answer the questions of what we had and what we offered, or that we had more to offer than he did, which is actually a Michigan municipality, which I don't want. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sure I got a perfect answer.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions at all?
Councillor Vladden?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are 2 possible ways, and I'm sure there are many others that thought, but 2 possible ways to approach this. One is to cast a wide net and say, what's out there that might find a place in our county? Or the other approach would be say, let's do an analysis of what we have, what we are, what our assets are now,
yeah,
and figure out the best kind of business or whatever
yeah,
to look at. Would you say we're doing both approaches, or would we exclude one or the other?
You should come up and do the presentation because we've kind of done the former, guys, kind of delegations and going out and looking and finding, or maybe from the marketplace in saying, hey, they might be a candidate, and going and cast that too wide a net. It's been ineffective. The better path is this. I think you're in the same game here. The second path is the second one you described, is go and say, who are we? What do we offer? What do we have? What are our limitations? And have a real salient feature package or pitch deck that you can go to a lot of marketplaces and sell ourselves. So instead of just the pick and choose, it's really understand the product before we go to the marketplace.
And the synergy amongst what we have.
Absolutely. Another example, and I don't want to hold up your meeting, but another example is that we've got some of the best assets in the province. Like we've got some dynamite assets in this municipality, and like agricultural assets, and so a lot of people have talked to us and said, well, you know, a lot of it goes on boats and heads offshore or that kind of thing. What about value add here in the county? And there's lots of opportunity for value added manufacturing here in the county. We're exploring a lot of it now, and I wish I could talk about it. But we're associated with some government entities that they want that they'd like to state the case instead of us. So I can't be specific, but I promise you it's in play, and some really exciting opportunities for value added agricultural products manufacturing in the county.
Thank you.
And largely led by some of the entrepreneurial people here in county.
Councillor Saban,
Yes, sir.
The only other question I had is, once this report is determined and provided,
Yes, sir.
is the county looking to put some benchmarks about where this report goes and measurables to determine, one, that it was successful, it gave you what you needed, and it's giving you a framework to move forward towards, but at least then you have a measurable to determine whether you're gaining traction or not.
Exactly. What we want out of this is the roadmap. The roadmap going forward to to economic development. And one of the things that I get a lot of, and I you can speak to this if it's right or not, is they say, oh yeah, here we go, another report. You know, it goes on the shelf, nothing happens, you know, that kind of thing. Man, I'll tell you, that'll be really disappointing, because this group that I'm involved with, the Huron County Economic Development Group, coming from a private sector background, they typically don't enter into those things if you're going to put it on a shelf. We want exactly what you're saying is a roadmap. Here's where we are. Here's where we can be. Here's where we should be, and those types of things down the road, going out 10 years. You know, somebody used an example at the clerks and treasurers meeting. They said about who bought. You can help me. Who bought from Amazon in the past year or so? Right? Somebody said about that? Yeah. There was lots of hands up, you know, in the last year or 2 years. They said, who bought from Sears in the last year or so? There was no hands, right? Well, Sears, that was the Amazon 20 years ago. Like the whole landscape is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And you know, keeping doing the same things all the time isn't getting it. You know, and so that's why we want to look at ourselves from everything from our information capability right straight through to manufacturing resources, and see who we are, what we have, what our assets are, and be able to, as I say, sell those assets and create that roadmap for the entire county, and help you people, you know, kind of create a global strategic document that says, hey, you know, here's us as a group, here's us as a county, and therefore, you know, should that be the case, down to bringing it down to the municipality, and offer it as an asset to the individual municipalities. We think it's a great asset, really, and really it will be a very valuable asset to the county and to the municipalities.
Donna?
Yes.
Tim, I was talking to you a little bit about this, John, at the meeting, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the soft services. So we talked about, you'll be talking about water and sewer as hard services for sure. But some of the in-scope softer services, well, things like airports and museums and recreation facilities and some of that also be included in this, and to what sort of extent?
I'm gonna pull Cody into the mix.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of outside of it. I think it's primarily about land development as opposed to cultural services and all sorts of other things. I mean, really, when you look at the key deliverables of this, it's about, and to your point about where's the benchmarking, this is really about benchmarking ourselves. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but really this is us trying to figure out what opportunities we have for improvement, and why wouldn't we do that? I mean, that kind of makes sense. So that when we do go out, as you mentioned, and talk about doing some investment attraction, trying to convince business to come here, we want to make sure we have our act together and everything works well as it possibly can. And I think that literally is the benchmark, that we have the best process possible. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that, but no, I don't. I think it will be loose. I don't think it'll dive too much into those kinds of things. I think that really is outside of this. This is about making sure that we're competitively locally and competitively regionally. And that's about trying to find those opportunities for improvement. I mean, there's always opportunities for improvement. So it's trying to help us figure out what those are.
In the document, we did talk about it at the previous meeting. In the document, it specifies a lot of things that are specifically out of scope, and a lot of things you talk about are specifically out of scope. They're structured properly. They have a committee or a group that's looking after it, and those kinds of things. And so we didn't want to just kind of start reinventing the wheel. We just want to look at the thing more on a bit of a higher plane, and again to have that. I keep saying pitch deck again. That's a that's a private sector comment, but that salient feature package that says we do this really well, and if you come here, we can support you really, really well, and kind of better than him or better than the other municipalities. Any other questions?
Yeah, okay.
I thank you very much for your time. Speaking this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, moving to 5.2. Scott Oakey, Director of Government Relations and Community Solutions, LED streetlight conversion.
Excuse me, sir.
Larry, we brought your light tonight. Just one. Just one.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting us to council tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Scott Bokie. This is Jeff Barton. I'm calling from LES. I'm with Real Term Energy. And we're going to walk you through really briefly an investment grade audit that's already been supplied to staff. So Real Term Energy is the company that LES retained. You probably know LES and AMO a lot better than you know us. But we're a private sector company based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And we've been pretty successful in the street lighting business, and since 2013, we have installed the most number of projects in North America, and done particularly well here in Ontario, largely due to our partnership with LES. But you can see from that map is we've installed projects in Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and 7 US states. So we're well experienced. We've done this many, many times before. We know what we're doing. In terms of the hard numbers, 170 plus Ontario municipalities, so almost half have chosen Real Term for LED conversions. We've installed over 110,000 fixtures with 170,000, give or take, on contract. And we have 42 employees that are solely dedicated to this. That's all we do is streetlights day in, day out. And we have our own design team, our own engineering team, our own GIS team. And we like to say that our GIS team is a stickler for details because the gentleman we hired to develop the application that tagged all the lights here as well as throughout Ontario used to be in the Canadian military in Afghanistan, where he tagged landmines. So you can bet he is a stickler for accuracy and detail, and that if he says your street light is where it is, you can take that to the bank. So LES obviously is the service arm of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, where I used to work a number of years ago, where Jeff currently works. I don't know if you know this, but kudos to those folks because this program actually was recognized, excuse me, by the World Bank as a best practice in enabling energy efficiency, what they call the collaborative procurement program. So for a public sector entity in Ontario, that's a great feather to have in their cap, and kudos to them. And in terms of the dollars and cents benefits to municipalities, you can see each and every year now this program has saved over $10 million in electricity savings, and that number continues to increase, of course, as electricity prices go up. And about $3.5 million each year in maintenance savings. So what does that mean for Wingham and Blythe? We'll get to in a second. But where we're at in terms of the process is kind of on the third bullet point up here. So We have sent our team out. They have collected all of the data. They have sent that data to our independent design team that have picked out the right fixtures, the right wattage, the right distribution patterns to get the light to the street and to the sidewalks where it needs to be to provide safety to the citizens here, but also to maximize your energy savings. So that's what attracted me to this company, and that's why I joined, is because that's what separates it from some of the other companies that do this work. They'll just pick a wattage of an old fixture and they'll replace that with a wattage of a new LED fixture all across your municipality. We don't do that. We design every unique street and we try to maximize each fixture's wattage and energy savings, making sure that the light gets to where it needs to be, but maximizing your return on investment. Because 110 watts versus 82 watts over the 10 to 20 years that you should have this fixture is pretty significant, and that adds up pretty quickly. So that's one of the things that we do, and we spend a lot of time doing it, and we're pretty good at it. Today, we're talking about the investment grade audit. And should council decide to move forward, we would then move to the installation and project management phase. We would work with both utilities to make sure that your billing has been changed properly. And rest assured, we've worked with both utilities in the past and done that a number of times. And I know Hydro One sometimes gets a bad name, but they're actually pretty quick at changing your bills. And they'll give you a retroactive credit if they're slow. So that's good news. After that, you'll get a final report. It'll be commissioned. We'll do a random sample in terms of quality control as well, both during and after the installation. And then there's a measurement and verification process that we do on behalf of municipality for the utilities to basically prove to the utilities that they're getting what they paid for in terms of the incentive that they'll provide for you. And the incentive, I think, is on the next slide. Yeah, which is about $47,000. So we have broken out two options. Staff directed us to give council tonight two options to consider. And here is option number one. Option number one is to do all of your street lights at once. Okay? And street lights are generally broken into two categories. One that's called Cobra Head, which looks just like the lovely thing in front of you. And it's called the Cobra Head. It kind of looks like the head of a cobra snake. That's more common. You've got 400 plus of those here in the municipality. And then you have three types of what's called decorative fixtures, which you see in the street in front of us here. That's a decorative fixture. You have three types here, which is good. I've been in some municipalities. Orangeville, for example, just on Highway 9, I think had 17 different types of decoratives or something, which from an inventory and cost perspective was kind of nasty. So 3 is good. It's easy to replace 3 with something very similar. And you're going to see that in a moment. But focusing on the economics, option number 1 is to do both the Cobra heads and the decoratives. So you have 582 lights. You're looking at a project cost of almost $450,000. If you decide to move forward soon, we can get an incentive from the ISO for about 10% of that. Just over 10% of project cost. It's already submitted. Jeff does this day in and day out with his team. How many have you done by now? 200, 300?
No, probably close to
200. So there's probably no one in North America that's done more streetlight incentive applications than Jeff and his team. So they know what they're doing. And that's already applied on your behalf. So a net cost of over 400,000, just over. You see the annual cost per fixture. Right now, per annum, on electricity and maintenance, you're spending just over $200 per fixture. If you upgrade, you would cut that by more than half, by 53%, to $94. So that's a simple payback of 6 years. And for those with a finance or an investment program, or people are a bit more familiar with return on your investment, remember 6-year payback is essentially 16.6% on your money. So I know some people like payback as a nice round number, but you may want to ask yourself, what other municipal investment could we put money into where it gets 16.6%? Certainly not anything at your local bank. That's option one. Option two is to do the overhead fixtures only. There's 442 of those. So the project cost comes down significantly because the decoratives tend to be more expensive. You're looking at, in terms of the annual cost per fixture, more or less the same. So you go from 199 to 92. And I'll just kind of jump back. Before it was 201 to 94. This would be 199 and 92. Same percentage, actually, coincidentally, minus 53%. And a simple payback of 3.6 years. So very, very attractive investment here. So those are the two options. You may ask yourself, what have most municipalities done? Quite frankly, most municipalities have done option two. And they've said to themselves, we'll wait and we'll do the decorative fixtures in 2 or 3 years. But in talking with a lot of them now, they regret that decision. Because if you pulled out the decoratives and you look at that in project 2 or 3 years from now, it won't look very attractive. Because on its own, the cost of those fixtures, the energy savings won't compensate for the cost of those fixtures. It's much better to do both at the same time, because the other large cost component of this project is the two, I'm going to say men, don't mean to be sexist, but I've never seen a female installer yet. The 2 men that are in the bucket truck to fit up the fixture. That costs between $130 to $170 each time they go out. So if you're going to do this now, if you were to separate, essentially 140 fixtures, to say that you would send out a crew 2 or 3 years from now to do 140 fixtures. First of all, it would be hard to find a company that even take your call for that little amount of work. There'd be very few companies that would want to do it. Second of all, the price per installation would go up to probably $200, $250, which would really make it really unattractive on its own. So obviously, we hope that you move forward, and the choice is obviously council's decision. But we would encourage you to think about option number one, which is doing them all at once, because it's very difficult to make the case to separate the decoratives later on. I think you'll be very pleased with also, beyond the economics and the energy savings, with the light quality that the new LED fixtures give out. It's a concentrated light, there's no uplight, there's no backlight, it's directed where it wants to be. And as you'll see, the fixtures that we're suggesting are really similar to what you have now. So here's a snapshot. The top 3 are obviously Cobra heads. There's your old Cobra head, the high pressure sodium, which on average needs to be changed out every 3 years. The LEDs you shouldn't have to do anything with for 15 to 20 years. They're lab tested for 22 years. You may have to wash them, clean them every 5 years, but other than that, you're good to go. They're fully warranted for 10. And Los Angeles, which is the longest, largest installations that have fixtures up for 8 years, has a failure rate less than 0.5% on fixtures that are 8 years old, which are far less efficient than the ones that you'll be buying. So it's great technology, it's durable, it's reliable. In terms of the look and feel of the decorative fixtures, so here's what we're recommending. Very similar, the Falcon Ridge is very similar to what you have on the street in front of us. It will easily fit on the existing pole. It's an attractive fixture made by King Luminaire. The Contempo is made by Acuity Lighting, one of the largest lighting companies in the world, as is the Granville, which were selected with input from municipal staff here to most closely resemble what you have currently in the 2 villages, but also based on its energy performance and its cost. They didn't go for the Porsche model, you can be rest assured of that, but they wanted to basically respect the look and feel of the communities as they currently exist. So wrapping up, next steps, hopefully council decides to move forward. We would send staff a standard CCDC contract to execute. If the municipality wants to, we can help consult the BIAs. Most municipalities don't decide to do that, but some do, and if you're interested, we can provide some assistance. and then essentially we would launch the project. Launching the project means all of these steps: staging, logistics for installation. We would develop a traffic management plan to make sure there's no inconvenience. We wouldn't want to, for example, be in Blythe from the festival zone, putting up lights. We want to avoid anything like that, any parades, any holidays, anything like that. There's an environmental management plan to make sure the fixtures are all recycled, that any toxic material in some of the fixtures is disposed of properly in a licensed Ontario facility, of which there are only 2. And all of that final inspection and sign up that I mentioned earlier. So with that, I'll stop talking and take your questions, of which I'm sure you have some, and Jeff's here as well to answer any questions in terms of the overall program.
Deputy Reeve Campbell.
Some of the LED lights, the older lights shine out farther when they shine out. The LED tend to shoot the light down. So you have dark spots.
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking at here?
You
Or
will
is that how LED lights work?
Yes and no. You're right, LED lights are far more directional. And the best example you ever see is get a new flashlight and an old flashlight. And you'll see it side by side in comparison. So they're very directional, which is good and bad. The good side is you won't get sky glow. So if there are any people that are naturalists or they like looking at the stars at night, they'll notice a big difference. You won't also get what's called backlighting. So a common complaint, and I'll prepare you for this now, is the old lady whose porch light used to be lit up and she could see the keyhole on the municipal street light. You're not going to get that anymore. And that's actually a complaint that you'll get from residents. I used to have my front light porch lit up and it's not anymore. And most municipalities respond, well, that's not really our job, man. Put a light bulb in there, we'll help you out. But to your question, the thing that our designers spend a lot of time on as well is what's called the distribution pattern. So the lights come out in a pattern. It's either oblong or oval or circular. And it's based on not the wattage, because if you increase the wattage, it's going to be the same pattern. It's just going to be more light in that pattern. It's based on where the diodes are at the point of assembly. So that has to be decided before they're actually manufactured in the facility, before they're ordered. So we'll do that, and our designers will maximize uniformity, which means you want the light to be as consistent as possible. Ironically, and I was just at the industry conference in Austin, Texas, ironically, a lot of the research is kind of being counterintuitive now, suggesting that dark spots give your eye and your brain a break and cause you to pay attention again to your task, which is driving, as opposed to a more uniform lighting. But still, we'll go for uniformity because that's what people generally expect. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, well, I've noticed that. And I just wondered if they're all equal that way.
Yeah. And you'll see those pictures there. I mean, that's
Yes.
that's from Glencoe in Southwest Middlesex. So that's a before and after. And the after is on the right in Glencoe. And, you'll see some dark spots there where there weren't lights on poles, essentially. Now, some municipalities have said to us, well, can you put a light on the pole? We'll say, yeah, we can do that, but rest assured, our designs will design to meet or exceed your current light levels. So that's what we aim for, and that's what we justify. So there's no liability risk for the municipality.
Councillor Singh.
So I want to make sure that when you talk about the total project cost here, is that for the fixtures or is that for installation, disposal, all in?
All in,
All in.
absolutely. And because we've done this more than 170 times here in Ontario, we're pretty darn confident that's not where the cost will be. The only exception might be, and again, we budgeted for, I think 3% of this happening, is where a street light approaches what's called a limit of approach, where there's high tension, high voltage wires close to the fixture. But our team's been through the municipality twice, and they've only noticed, I think, 3 or 4 instances of that. We have to pay Hydro One to come and supervise that because our workers are not allowed to go near it. So that raises the cost, but we factored that in. We've also factored in rewiring and refusing and 2% arm replacement. So if we don't replace 2% of the arms, we'll credit the municipality. And we've done that a number of times. We actually started with 10% arm replacement, went down to 5% based on what we were seeing in the field, and now it's 2% because most of the arms are actually in pretty good shape, and we're not near a saline body of water, so we don't get a lot of rust issues here in Ontario. So we try to reuse the metal as much as we can.
Anything else?
And I just wanted to, this may be a question for Larry. The original discussion about this, the paybacks are coming back to the municipality. All the energy savings is to the municipality and not anybody else, correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think it must be pretty well answered. When there isn't further questions, I know that I've talked to you at some of the trade shows, Scott, so that it's one of the ways of the world and new technology that's changing how things work. So do you have anything, Larry, or?
Not really. This program is going to pay back if you go for the whole shot at once in 6 years. After that, the savings will come into the coffers of the municipality as found money. Maintenance, and I've been through this with Perth South, and maintenance costs drop drastically. Your fixtures are going to last probably 15 years plus, and they've got a warranty for 10 years. So to me, it's really kind of a no-brainer to step into this as a positive thing, and I would recommend that we do that.
That we do have a report further on in the meeting where we will definitely be discussing it further and possibly coming up with some
Resolution?
way of moving forward on things. So at this time, I'll say thank you very much for attending and being willing to show what it can do for us. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Council, thank you.
Moving to 6.1, the clerk's department. There's tender results, Sturdy Municipal Drain, Branch F, 2017.
So staff have the following recommendation, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby award the contract on the Sturdy Municipal Drain Branch F 2017 to AG Hayter Contracting Limited, subject to the third reading of bylaw number 74 2017 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works for the Sturdy Municipal Drain Branch F 2017.
I'll make that motion.
And you're seconding, Councillor Halliday?
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Campbell. Councillor Halliday, all in favor? Carried. Moving to the finance department, 6.2.1, the asset management plan 2016. Donna, do you have Anything in a preamble or?
Yes, I'd like to speak to this report for a few moments. So the asset management plan that was attached to your agenda, I realize it's a large document. And this is the second edition since our original edition in 2013. So the asset management plan is an important document, and I don't think anybody is that surprised that the replacement cost for North Huron's assets is $214.5 million. The infrastructure report card indicates an overall grade of F, which to a large extent is the result of the lack of funding of capital assets and asset replacement. As outlined in the report, the average annual investment for assets funded through taxation is just over $4 million, and we're only funding that at about 28%, leaving an annual deficit of close to $3 million. The annual average investment required for sanitary and water is $1.4 million, and even though we're putting away about $628,000 a year through that $15 a month that we collect on the water and sewer bills, it still leaves an annual deficit of $837,000. So we're still not putting enough away. If you look at the table that was in the report that I prepared, you'll see that one area of particular concern is the buildings. If you look at the replacement cost of the buildings at over $40 million and building assets that are still in operation beyond their useful life valued at $20 million, you see that not only the large number of buildings, but their aging condition is an area requiring attention. As we move forward on the facility condition assessments, it will show you that we simply can't afford the upkeep on all of our buildings. This plan tells us that we have to make serious steps towards sustainability, and the use of this document as part of our upcoming budget deliberations will help us reach our goals. We simply can't keep going the way that we were going and providing such a high level of service for such a small municipality. There needs to be some serious look at programs and services currently offered and focus on core municipal services. This would involve tax increases, new debt, and commitment to infrastructure. Most of the financing strategies outlined in this report are common sense, such as when we pay off a loan, then the payments amount then would be allocated to infrastructure. The same for continuing use of gas tax funds, OCIF funds for capital projects, and things like when we have the hospital, our commitment to the hospital, $50,000 paid off in 2020, then again we can reallocate those funds to infrastructure. The hardest part of this report is the recommendation of a dedicated tax levy of 2.6% increase yearly for a 20-year period. And that's just to fund the tax-funded assets, not water and sewer. So that would be approximately $127,000 per year. So if you think about it, last year we had an overall spending increase of about 3.61, and that equated to $170,000. So you would be looking at future increases of over 6% if you were able to incorporate this 2.6 dedicated tax levy for infrastructure replacement. In addition, the report recommends a 3.2% increase for sewer and a 1.2% increase for water also over the next 20 years. So the next steps in the AMP is the condition and risk assessments. This is going to take some dedicated time from our new Public Works Director. There is new legislation coming out under Bill 6, and this will require some outside assistance, which we will have to incorporate those expenses into future budgets as well. The data in the asset management plan needs to be constantly updated, and we've made some good progress over the last while with the roads needs study, bridge needs study. We're in the early stages of the water and wastewater sewer master plan under that CWWF fund. The sewer camera work that's being undertaken right now. This could show that the assets, even though they're at or nearing the end of their life, they still could be in good condition. So you would incorporate that information back into your plan. And then, of course, if this LED streetlight program goes ahead, that will also be good data for the plan. Also, I know Pat and Larry are undertaking some facility condition assessments, and as we work through more of those Those will be the two will be presented to council this fall sometime, and that's gonna give you some good information. It will scare you, but it will give you good information on the cost to maintain some of our aging buildings. So we are making progress in adding updated data to our record space. This report is a good kickoff into budget season, and we will be referring to it as we move along through the budget process. I realize this is a huge report with a lot of big numbers in it, but overall we need to address sustainability and how we can get there. So as I was saying, if you have any questions about this report, we're going to take pieces of it as we work our way through the budget and this fall as we begin that process. And we'll talk about some areas in specific relation to as those department pieces come up in the budget. So is there any questions off the top of your head that you would like to discuss for a few moments?
Any council?
I'm scared.
Not at this time.
All right, not seeing any, the recommended resolution from staff on this one is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the Asset Management Plan 2016, prepared by the Public Sector Digest for information purposes, and further that the Asset Management Plan be posted on the Township website.
Councillor Ritz-Matamanga, Deputy Reeve Campbell seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to 6.2.2, the Marg Bennett dormant account. Do you want to give some background, Donna?
Sure. So this is an old account with a few dollars in it that was established in 1988. The purpose of this fund back in those days was to provide an award to a junior citizen who displayed an outstanding achievement in the community. So this account has fell dormant because there's been no transactions on it for quite some time, and it's incurring fees. So I did close the account, and then based on staff history as to what the goal of the account was to provide an award, I contacted Effie Medill to see if there would be a suitable Wingham student which has shown outstanding citizenship that might be able to receive this award. And the guidance department indicated that they would be able to find such a deserving student. So rather than go with the $366.84, I recommended to round it up to $375 and pay this donation over to the Effie Medill so they can disperse it this year as part of their graduation ceremonies, and it would tidy up this old item that's been around for quite some time.
Councillor Syed.
I will move.
Councillor Vaughn, seconds. All in favor? Carried. Okay. The OSIFA top-up application for Mill Street. Richard?
The recommendation from staff on this one is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby authorizes an application under the OCIF top-up application funding for the Mill Street project in Blythe.
So moved.
Councillor Gladden, Councillor Knott, seconds. Any discussion? Any comments, Larry?
Now, this is just a continuation of the job that's presently underway on Westmoreland Street. The sewer that will eventually go up Mill Street basically drains, the storm sewer basically drains about 62 hectares of land. It's a major project to get the sewer in place. And then we could have proper drainage within the east side of Blythe.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Moving to 6.2.4, the section 357, September 2017.
This recommendation from staff is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the report in regard to the tax refunds under section 357(1)D of the Municipal Act in the amount of $3,976.72 as presented by the Director of Finance, and approves the adjustments to be made to the collector's roll.
Do you want an explanation to start, or are you making the motion? Deputy Reeve Campbell makes the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Knott. Discussion. Do you want to give a short explanation, Donna?
I think that it's straightforward there. The only thing that we were supposed to check is that if any of the applicants were in the audience, that they were allowed to speak. I'm not sure. I don't know the one particular applicant, so I'm not sure. Okay, so there's no applicants in the audience pertaining to this matter, so I think we can move forward.
Okay. I have a motion. All in favor? Carried. Moving to 6.3, Recreation and Facilities Department. 6.3.1, Almost Famous Players Memorandum of Understanding. You want to give a brief, Pat?
Basically, what this report is trying to clean up and get on record how the hall upstairs has been used really since 2004 by the Almost Famous Players. Really, we're just looking since we've reopened the theater and we have on record now the conditions for renting it and the fees, and we also have a fee waiving and donations bylaw. I wanted to bring this group forward that they would be an exception to charging the fees on a weekly basis for their use of the hall. They are contributing to the community. They are providing a program for people that might normally be socially excluded within the community, and they really are running on donations. So the request here is to waive the fees for their and to be permitted to use the hall as they have traditionally done on Mondays from 1 to 2:30. We've worked with this board to get this in place, and they both we've read and they've read the memorandum of understanding in its draft form. So if council wishes to proceed, then we will finalize and formalize that and get that into a bylaw for you to consider at the next meeting.
Councillor Knott moves. And Councillor Hallahan seconds. Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.4, the Public Works, back to the LED street light conversion program. We had it pretty well discussed before.
There's a couple of things, Reeve, if you don't mind. Like I said earlier, I would recommend that we go ahead with option number 1, which is all the streetlights. I know the payback period is 6.5 years compared to 3.6 or something like that. But in the long run, I think you'll be far happier, and the savings will start basically immediately, and that can be applied to the loan that we are taking from ourselves from reserves. And once that's paid off, then those savings go directly into as extra money into the budget. So I think anything that we can do to cut operating costs is a good thing. And Don and I have also been looking at, there's another grant program that we may qualify for under the greenhouse gas and carbon emission, would give us a little bit more, but we still have to flesh that out. But there's, and it's, if you notice back in April, the projected cost was about $530,000. So I mean, this has come in substantially lower than that, and I think we should take advantage of it whenever we can. I think it's something that's very prudent to do.
Councillor Syed?
I would tend to agree. The only thing I think we want, I as personally want to make sure that somehow in the motion or something is once that payment of the 500 or whatever the cost is that we're paying back to water and sewer, every dime of those savings that we know of goes into reserves. Does not get used in operating at all. I'm assuming that's the case. However, I want to make it perfectly clear that that saving should be directed to infrastructure only and not used for operating costs at all. So I will make that motion if that is the belief of, or the understanding of council. I think that is what we had talked about before, but I want to make sure that was clear, at least from my perspective.
I believe, Trevor, if you go back to the April 3rd, it does kind of reference that.
I think it, and I read it before. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to that type of, because I know it can get lost in translation once savings start happening and all of a sudden you budget and then budgets get reduced based on operating and then it's not understanding that the actual savings is because of usage.
Deputy Reeve.
And I agree with Councillor Stitt that even though it's not stated in here, could we rescind this to make sure that this is a substantial lower price than what we talked about in April also? So we can't capitalize no savings, but I think it should be in the motion, like you have stated, that this be part of that motion if that's a possibility.
Yeah, there's no reason why you can't add to the motion that's proposed and direct the savings, the future savings to a reserve fund.
Infrastructure reserve.
Yep.
Councillor Knott.
It states right here in this language, it was to redirect the surplus to a roads reserve.
Yep.
So it was specified as roads. Councillor Seat want to change that to a different reserve fund?
I don't particularly, the fact that we have a deficit in everything, I don't think it matters. The priority is obviously roads. The understanding though, obviously the part I'm getting at is that, 15 years down the road or 20 years when we have to replace these lights, nobody should be conversating about where the money should be coming from because we've already got it in reserve somewhere. I know it might have went to a road, but then the roads we have to somehow get it. So we have deficits in the infrastructure all over. We need to start utilizing these savings that we're getting operating and putting them into these reserves.
Councillor Knott.
Can I suggest you scratch the roads then? Do we have a general infrastructure reserve fund?
We keep it by department so that it's easier to manage it. But I mean, you could call it a public works reserve if you didn't like the word roads reserve that's on the books.
I think that's just a little restrictive, and perhaps we leave it open for the future for it to be redirected where it's needed at any given point, as opposed to specifically being tied to roads.
So, something, if I'm understanding this correctly, jump in if not, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby authorizes that a contract be entered into with LAS Real-Term Energy to provide services to convert the Township of North Huron streetlights to LED units as presented in option number 1, and further that any savings realized after upfront costs are repaid will be placed in reserves, and further that Council directs the clerk to prepare an authorizing bylaw for the October 2nd, 2013 council meeting. What we're after?
Yeah, I think the only just a little caveat would be to add public works reserve.
Public works?
Just public works reserve.
Okay. That's Mover, you're seconding?
Yes, I did.
Deputy Reeve. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to 6.7.1, Uh, Economic Development Committee draft terms of reference. Richard?
So the recommendation, staff of, for this one is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report and provides direction to staff regarding the proposed Economic Development Committee.
And Dwayne, do you want to
Sure.
give any other information?
So at the August 8th, I believe, council meeting, council asked for consideration of the establishment of an economic development committee. So what we've done is we've looked at area municipalities, their economic development committees, and based on that have prepared these draft terms of reference. Excuse me, and these are provided simply for discussion purposes, simply based on a review of other municipalities. And perhaps I'll just highlight a few things. In terms of the committee itself, and again, this is for council's consideration. The committee could be comprised of up to 11 voting members. 2 would be council members, 1 from each of the BAA, and up to 7 public members at large. And the public members at large would represent various economic sectors, being manufacturing, creative industries, agriculture, healthcare, real estate, retail, and agri-food. So it could be 7 additional members from those various sectors. In terms of appointment to the committee, it would be appointment or reappointment would be by a letter of interest to the township by a particular given date in a year. And all the letters received from the eligible applicants would be brought to council for council's review and appointment. In terms of staff resources, these individuals would sit as non-sitting members. And again, this is for discussion purposes. It would be the recommendation in terms of the draft would be that the CAO would serve as the economic development officer for the committee, and that to be 1 additional staff person who would serve as a resource person. And you'll see in the draft terms of reference, there's kind of an outline there in terms of what that person could perform. I mean, as indicated, there'd be a chair and a vice chair. So in terms of, the committee would just be established, committee would get up and running, but then the committee itself, would take things from there. I think it's important to emphasize that the committee would be an advisory body to council, so it would have no decision-making authority. It would simply bring, if there was a recommendation from the committee, it'd be done by motion from the committee to council, and council would continue and would maintain decision-making authority regarding economic development matters. So that's for council's consideration and discussion. And again, we're open to any feedback or suggestions or what council would like to do.
Councilor Knott?
Commend you folks are doing a great job. I was impressed with the draft here. The only thing I see missing out of here is a requirement for meetings during the year. And they need a minimum of monthly. And if it's there, I apologize, but I didn't see it when I went through there.
It is, let me just find it. Meeting, if you go to page 3, regular meetings will be held on a monthly basis as required.
I apologize. I missed
Okay.
it. And that would be a minimum or as required beyond that.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. It's excellent. Thank you very much.
Councilor Syfe first.
My only comment, and I know, would be how do we somehow tie ourselves to the county? The county has an economic development board. They got a strategic plan, and it somehow has to the stars all got to align. How? Because we are in the county. How does this board or this committee understand that board's kind of direction to somehow, so that we're not competing against each other for the same resource and stuff? I didn't see anything from a county perspective of a member, which I don't necessarily know that they need a member, but I think we need somehow some liaison to know what's going on in the both. I think that would be, in my opinion, that would help this committee understand the county-wide approach, but also give us some sense of understanding of what they're doing versus what we need to do locally.
Councillor Knott.
I, again, page 3, but the committee may from time to time require experts or other representatives to attend the meeting, and I think that's where the opportunity arises to request on an ongoing basis that the County Economic Development Board have someone come. They wouldn't be a voting member though, but they would attend the meetings to keep us apprised of what's going on at the county level. I think you could insert that there, but that provision to allow them to come is there, so.
We'll go to Larry first.
On page 1, it also might help put this together on the advisory of the council. Advising council on the coordination of economic development strategies and initiatives with other regional organizations such as the County of Huron, other townships, Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Employment, State Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Rural Affairs, and both of the BIAs. So I think it's kind of covered, Trevor. It just, when the opportunity presents itself, they're free to do that and to certainly bring people in and make it.
Yeah, and I understood. I understand the purpose. I understand that it's sometimes where I miss it, and I think it gets lost is the structure and how that provision gets dictated. Because you could go a whole year and not have a county person ever at the table and never have asked them to. And where have you got any information from them? You haven't. The concerning is that's the one. It's fine to put provisions in here to say that they're available to come to the table, but if no one asks them to come to the table, then you don't really have them at the table. So that's the part I just want to highlight. I think the report is excellent, and I just want to understand how the structure is to get these people at the table when you need them, and who's going to determine that.
I think when you go out to advertise for members, you could certainly be extended to the county of Huron. If they wanted to sit on the committee, that would be a letter that would come for consideration council.
Councillor Lodge.
It strikes me that the line from the county should be to council. This is only an advisory body. It seems to me that would be an important line. I could be wrong about that, but it just strikes me that the relationship between the county and the Economic Development Board should be from the county to council. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. But one of the other things that I'd like to mention, this is not really part of the motion or a limitation. I would hope that it would become fairly common for members of council who are not members of the board to attend the meetings as an observer and as a listener, because it seems to me that in most committees, there's a tendency for those who are not on the committee to stay away. And I think that we all need to be engaged in economic development. And I think we should feel free to attend the meetings whenever we wish or whenever it's relevant.
And perhaps if I could just speak to that, this would be a committee of council. So in terms of the meeting requirements, in terms of posting of the agenda and all that.
That's a public meeting.
That's right. It'd be a committee of council.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the same procedures would apply.
But it's just the customary practice of not going to the meeting if you're not on the committee.
Ray.
Yeah, just one thing here. I see now we're going to appoint a representative from the BIA, Reeve, and Wingham, and because we don't have a BIA in East Wanatch Ward, a fair number of businesses there. How's that going to work in? How's that going to work in? We're going to two councillors, I know, on the board, but how can that be fit into it?
Somewhere, I've got that in here.
Okay.
Um, And it doesn't, it speaks to have representation of the whole township from all wards. There it is, bottom of page 1. That council have regard for the diversity of business interests and qualifications of the citizen candidates for the committee and to have representation from all wards of the township.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Knott.
Can I make the motion that we instruct staff to move forward with preparing necessary, I guess we have to change bylaw and create this and begin to structure. And I guess this says January to December. Is there anything that's going to stop us from appointing early and extending it beyond? So that we set the committee up and have it start in November. They would then serve for November, the balance of this year, and then the full term next year. I don't think there's anything to prevent that, is there?
You know, usually committees align with terms of council, so you could go theoretically from November to the end of term of council.
Yeah.
I would suggest in this instance.
So I'll make the
That
motion.
would be understood in the motion.
Yes.
Councillor Site, second.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, in 7.1, the Huron Residential Hospice, a request for funding support. Richard?
So the recommendation attached to this one is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the correspondence of the Huron Residential Hospice for information purposes, and further that Council directs staff to provide the Huron Residential Hospice with the necessary donation request forms.
Seconded. Councillor Knott? Go ahead.
I have a minor objection to this. At the beginning, there's a quotation by George Eliot. And then the next paragraph begins, there's much truth in Mr. Eliot's words. Actually, George Eliot was a woman.
Just a spelling mistake.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Okay, for Reeve's activity report. The elementary school fair in Belgrave went very well. Good cross-section of entries with very few classes not having some entries. The rest of my time since the last council meeting has been sort of eaten up with another big thing that opens tomorrow just south of Walton. That it was a little tacky there when I left, so it was slower leaving than normal. But with the clouds clearing, I think things should be in good shape. The long-range weather forecast looks good. And I will admit that Denise was worried that I kept teasing her that I wasn't going to the North Huron display. But I have been there. And so that all that can make it, I think it's really showing Huron County basically as a county that can pull off something of a big show like this. And thank you to all the volunteers. And I know for a fact the IPM committee lists their volunteers, but the food court isn't part of that. There's a number of other committees that are not part of the IPM committee. So there's probably 300 to 400 other volunteers as well. And so that it's a fabulous thing for the county to be pulling off. And it looks like we're going to get the weather forecast for the rest of the week. So I'm looking forward to the end of the week. Larry, do you want to help me out with maybe announcing a director of public works?
We do have a new director of public works who's accepted the job here. His name is Sean McGee.
Yeah.
He's from Elliott Lake. He's been up there a number of years, I think about 8. He is from down here from the south previous. And I think he was a very impressive candidate when we interviewed him. I think he will do well.
Thank you. So, moving to council, if they have reports, Deputy Reeve.
I also attended the Belgrade School Fair, and this is the only fair in all of Ontario that only has students putting projects in. Other fairs have adults, but Belgrade is the only one in Ontario. And this was their 97th year. It's pretty something too. And the amount of work, even for the grandparents, it's still work. But it was a good day, a good program.
Councilor,
I just wanted to let council know that I did bring greetings to the United Way Perth Huron's kickoff to their campaign today at the Royal Oaks campus. They have a lofty goal for the current year, close to $1.6 million. And the way Andrew, the chair or vice chair of the United Way campaign, mentioned, it would be about $10 for every resident in the county of both Huron and Perth that they donated. That would get them the $1.6 million. So it's a lofty goal, or a gracious goal as what they had said today. But I think it shows to the need in the community, and it's definitely, with that increase in donation, they said they could start 7 new programs within the county, Perth and Huron, for different levels of service. Meals on Wheels was one of them that they talked about. So I think it was an excellent. I was so happy to be able to do that on behalf of council.
thank you. Councilor Vaughan.
I have a few things. I was honored to have the chance to represent council, greeting the Friends of the Village at their memorial service for the Memorial Garden in Blythe. It's amazing what those folks have done in terms, not just in terms of that garden, but in terms of the gardens and parks around the entire village. They've done a tremendous amount of work, and they're a highly motivated group. Also with respect to the CHIP program, the CHIP board has a new project. We're assisting the county roads department with training for the new crosswalks that are being implemented. And they have some stage effects to help people learn how to obey the signals as a driver or as a pedestrian or as a cyclist. That's going to be quite an interesting project. I'd also like to mention the festival season that we've had this year. It's been a tremendous season as usual, I think. But in particular, it's very, very special in the sense that it has brought to our attention the First Nation people of the area. And I think Huron County has a particular problem in that area, and we don't have any reserves. And so a number of people have said to me, well, it doesn't really affect us because we don't have any First Nation people here. But actually we do. We're just not aware of them. But I think we are all part of this need for reconciliation. And I think the theater has done a great task. And just a note of perhaps a little bit of interest, I had a request from another First Nation community, the Chippewa First Nation, the Chippewa of the 10 First Nation, asked me to write a review of the play of Ipperwash. And so the word is spreading not only amongst the non-original people, but around the indigenous communities as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yolanda.
Last week, Thursday, I believe, the Town Hall Theater Committee received another $5,000 grant, or a $5,000 grant from NEBO for improvements towards the theater upstairs. So there was a little lot for that. So that's exciting news that they're still bringing money in to put that towards the improvements upstairs.
The work will continue.
It will, yep.
Okay, that's great news. Thank you. Okay, Ray?
I guess I can say that Thrashers was a success again this year. Well, I think it was average. We had some wet weather on the start on the Friday, but everything averaged out well. Very well.
Thank you. Okay, moving to 9.1, there's a notice of motion, and that I'll have Richard read out what staff is looking at, and Deputy Reeve Campbell will have the floor to give further explanation.
So the motion as it reads is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby direct the clerk to request that a representative of the OPP attend council to provide information regarding call statistics as well as an update regarding criminal activity in the Blythe and East Wabinosh wards.
Okay. And that would be brought to an upcoming council meeting. My understanding, you are unable to make the next council meeting.
I can't make the next council meeting.
So that I would suggest we try having it for the following.
16th, I think it is.
That if this passes, do you want to give further explanation behind this at this time? Or do you want me just to call for a mover and a seconder? Oh, that's right. Yeah. So this is just notice.
This is just a notice.
And that wording suits you?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, moving to 10.1. which is bylaw number 83, 2017.
Bylaw 83, bylaw number 83, 2017, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council a sign agreement with WVR8 Holdings, Inc., Huron Tractor Blythe, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Knott moving,
Yes.
and Councillor Hallahan seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Any announcements? Okay, that we need to have a closed session and reporting out.
So we do have we have 3 items for council's consideration in closed session. We have under section 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board for road widening. Under the same section, section 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding a wind industrial lot. And also under section 239(c), 2c, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board for a lot enlargement. So if we can get into that.
Okay, motion by Councillor Syke, Councillor Vaughn, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we're in short recess.